if there is a potential to do outbound, empathetically, you should. But
Yeah,
what
if
are
you
maybe
can.
some tips that people can try just to make sure that they're not doing something to hurt their reputation? Like, could they do like a very small scale test of a certain email just to
Yeah,
see, how do you think through this?
yeah, it's walking a tightrope. Um, I wrote a blog post about the need to pivot.
Hmm.
In Aikido, they have the pivot. I'm
Hmm.
a tall, skinny guy. I was never that athletic. So in Aikido, you pivot literally to redirect someone else's movement. And um, so I wrote a blog post about that topic and the relevance to business right now.
Hmm.
I don't want to beat people over the head with that message, but I still feel it's relevant. So I'll put it out there and see if I get any comments on it. But I'm not going to, promote it right now.
No, maybe you can just quickly summarize.
Test,
Like
I'll
it sounds
test it.
like, was this just sort of like advice for people on how
Yeah,
to try?
yeah.
I mean, if you wouldn't mind, I think a quick summary would be appreciated. Like what's your advice for people who might have to rethink the outbound?
Well, this is more inbound as far as pivoting is concerned. The advice that I had in my blog
Okay,
post,
right.
and that was basically, let's say for the sake of example, you're a lawyer.
Hmm.
Um, every lawyer right now should be employing video conferencing.
Hmm.
Every lawyer should be looking into electronic signature. UPS has been doing it for years. Everybody can do it. It's admissible in courts, I think, in almost every state. Otherwise, how would UPS and FedEx be collecting electronic signatures everywhere?
Hmm.
Um, so it was along those lines that, look at what you can do to make it easier for you to operate on a humanistic business level, to reduce overhead, make it easier for other people so you can still interact without necessarily doing the physical face-to-face.
Right.
But it's reducing overhead, it's cutting redundant operations, it's using automated procedures and processes more, which is certainly relevant to e-commerce. Uh, and
Have you seen
video.
anything interesting on that, on the e-commerce space specifically? Because I think that's a really good point. The behavior is changing, and certainly,
Yeah,
like, I think
yeah.
entrepreneurs should be able to apply things.
Years ago, and this was when I was doing a lot more outbound,
Hmm.
and I interacted with a company called Equid, um, and I got on some conference calls with them, and I should have required payment, but I just felt like, hey, I really like what you guys are doing. Someone there reached out to me for advice, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to schedule some conference calls with you. And I kind of talked about the military organizational mindset that I like to apply to management and marketing plan implementation.
Hmm.
And so I think that what they're doing is still very organized and still very good. I think they'll still be around and continue to grow exponentially as a company. Um, I don't see Shopify going anywhere anytime soon. Um, Although I feel ambivalent about Shopify. And those are the two ones that come to mind right away. Does that
Uh,
kind of answer the question?
um, no, I think I was looking more on the side of, because essentially you talked about certain trends that you've seen which lawyers can make use of, like with the electronic signatures and things like that, where they're adapting to the times, so to speak. So I was curious if in the e-commerce space you saw anything similar with an e-commerce entrepreneur can do,
Mm,
which maybe they couldn't do, which, it's a pivot, which would be
yeah,
maybe.
I have seen small business owners and entrepreneurs using e-commerce in non-traditional methods, such as using e-commerce to charge for consultations. I have a client who's a
Mhm.
private investigator. She uses e-commerce to charge for consultations, to charge for package investigations, such as a divorce.
Right.
And because you can't just go file a divorce versus an investigation, information is accumulated. So she has packages that she has using e-commerce for that. And to my knowledge, she's probably the only private investigator doing that in all of
That's
Colorado.
wonderful.
She may be the only one in the entire United States using e-commerce to charge for packages and services. It's extremely non-traditional to use e-commerce for services. Try finding a lawyer who charges using e-commerce for their services.
Sure.
An accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, who else? A handyman. How many of them use e-commerce to take payment for services?
That's
Almost
true. And
none.
I was talking
Almost
about
none.
this the other day as well, where, concepts like telemedicine have been around for ages, and now suddenly it's a thing,
Mhm.
right? Like it's like, it's almost like this big event, like a disruption event that's suddenly making
Yeah.
it possible for new industries to crop up, which you never imagined before. And
Oh,
e-commerce is
yeah.
clearly in the center.
Yeah, when I was talking before about the doctor, I needed a prescription refill,
Right.
and I said, "Well, look, my prescription hasn't changed in like 30 years. I've lost a lot of weight." So they said, "Well, okay." Long story short, they already had the blood work, so they knew everything. I had to get in the car and drive for an hour and a half to get to the doctor because of traffic. So an hour and a half to get to the doctor. I have to wait in the waiting room for like another half hour. The very crowded waiting room. So I'm sitting there very nervous. Everybody's laughing at me because I have the mask on. And so they're literally laughing at me.
Hmm.
And then I go in and I talk to the doctor. He asks me two questions. He clicks a button, the refill is sent to the pharmacy. I
Right.
get in the car, I drive for an hour and a half to 2 hours now because of more rush hour traffic to get home.
Hmm.
I could have done that over the phone. I could have done it
Right.
by
Oh,
Skype.
online. Fill
Yeah,
out those questions yourself. Right.
email, Skype, whatever. But because they're not comfortable with it or they don't want to do the work, now you're doing all of this. Whereas the general doctor I have, they said that's fine. We have our own thing where we're going to do a video conferencing. You can call it telemedicine. For me, it's just video chat.
Right. Yeah.
Google
I
Hang,
mean,
yeah,
whatever the term
whatever
is.
makes you happy. Skype, Google Hangouts, Zoom. Everybody loves Zoom now. Uh, I'm not so crazy about it for different reasons. So there's other ones. There's a million others.
Sure.